the backyard buzzed with laughter, the smoky tang of grilled burgers curling through the summer air, when the gate creaked open and a stranger in a cheap suit stepped through. His shoes, scuffed and out of place on the grass, crunched toward the picnic table. My wife, Lila, stood mid-laugh, a beer bottle dangling from her fingers, her eyes catching his approach before I did. The process server handed her a manila envelope, his face blank as a stone wall, and said, "You've been served." Lila froze, her breath hitching like a snagged thread, the bottle slipping from her hand to shatter on the patio. The chatter died. Our friends' faces turned, a gallery of wide eyes and parted lips, as the world tilted under my feet. I crossed the lawn, heart pounding like a fist against my ribs, and touched her arm. "Lila, what is it?" Her skin was cold, clammy despite the July heat, and she clutched the envelope to her chest, her knuckles white. "It's nothing," she whispered, but her voice cracked, a fault line splitting the lie. She wouldn't meet my eyes, her gaze darting to the envelope, then to the ground, where beer foam hissed against the broken glass. I felt the first stab of dread, sharp and cold, slicing through the haze of a perfect afternoon. Inside, the kitchen was a sanctuary of normalcy, lemon-scented dish soap, the hum of the fridge, but the air felt heavy, like the moment before a storm breaks. Lila sat at the counter, the envelope unopened in front of her, her fingers tracing its edges as if it might burn her. "Open it," I said, my voice tighter than I meant. She shook her head, her dark hair falling like a curtain over her face. "It's probably a mistake, Tom. Some legal mix-up." But her hands trembled, and her words sounded like a prayer she didn't believe in. I wanted to trust her. God, I did. But the way she avoided my gaze, the way her breath came too fast, planted a seed of doubt that rooted fast. I reached for the envelope, but she snatched it back, her eyes flashing with something raw. Fear maybe, or guilt. "Don't," she snapped, then softened, her voice breaking. "Please just let me handle it." Her plea was a blade, cutting through the trust we'd built over 12 years. I stepped back, my hands raised, but my mind was racing, replaying moments I'd dismissed. Her late nights at the office, the way her phone was always face down, the sudden silences when I entered a room. "What aren't you telling me?" I asked, my voice low, barely holding back the anger bubbling beneath. She stood, clutching the envelope, and moved toward the sink, her back to me. The sunlight streaming through the window caught the gold in her hair, and for a moment, she was the woman I'd married, fierce, radiant mine. But then she turned, and her eyes were haunted, brimming with tears she wouldn't let fall. "It's complicated," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I need time." Time. The word landed like a stone in my gut. Time for what? To confess? To hide? I wanted to shake her, to demand answers, but the weight of her silence held me back. A warning that whatever was in that envelope would change everything. The rest of the day passed in a blur of forced smiles and half-hearted goodbyes to our friends. Lila disappeared upstairs, claiming a headache, leaving me to clean up the remnants of our barbecue. Paper plates smeared with ketchup, empty beer cans glinting in the dusk. I kept seeing her face, the way it had crumpled when the server appeared, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something vital, a piece of her I'd never known. I poured myself a whiskey, the burn of it grounding me, and sat on the couch, staring at the staircase, willing her to come down and explain. When she finally did, the envelope was still in her hand, now creased and worn from her grip. She sat across from me, her knees drawn up, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. "Tom," she started, then stopped, her lips trembling. "I didn't mean for this to happen." My heart lurched, a sickening drop, as the room seemed to shrink around us. "What did you do?" I asked, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. She opened the envelope, her hands shaking so badly the papers rustled, and slid a document across the coffee table. It was a lawsuit, breach of contract, filed by a man named Daniel Harper. A name I didn't know. A name that felt like a stranger's fist in my chest. "Daniel," I said, testing the word, hating how it tasted. "Who is he?" Lila's eyes flicked away, and that small gesture was a confession in itself. "He's someone I worked with," she said, her voice barely audible. "It was a mistake, Tom. A stupid, selfish mistake." The air left the room, and I was drowning, the truth crashing over me in waves. An affair. My wife, my Lila, had betrayed me. I wanted to scream, to throw the papers in her face, but all I could do was stare at her, searching for the woman I thought I knew. She told me in fragments, her words halting, each one a fresh wound. It started innocently, a shared project, late nights, a connection she hadn't expected. But then it grew, a secret she carried like a stone in her chest, until Daniel wanted more, wanted her to leave me. The lawsuit was his revenge, claiming she'd promised him a partnership, a future. I ended it, she said, tears streaming down her face now. I swear I ended it months ago. But he won't let go. Her voice broke, and she reached for my hand, but I pulled away, the sting of her touch too much. I stood, pacing the living room, my mind a tangle of rage and heartbreak. I saw our life together, our wedding on the beach, her laughter in the morning, the way she'd curl into me at night, and it all felt like a lie. How could you? I asked, my voice raw, breaking. How could you do this to us? She sobbed, her hands covering her face, but her apologies felt hollow, like ash in my mouth. I wanted to hate her, to walk away, but love is a stubborn thing, clinging even when it's been gutted. The night stretched on, a war of words and silences. I demanded details, hating myself for needing to know, and she gave them, each one a fresh cut. But then she said something that stopped me cold. I stayed, Tom. I chose you. Her eyes locked on mine, desperate, pleading. I could have left, but I didn't. I love you. And there it was, the twist that broke me, not the betrayal, but the choice she'd made, the flawed, human choice to stay. I saw her then, not as the villain I wanted to paint her, but as someone who'd stumbled, who'd hurt me but hadn't stopped loving me. I sank onto the couch, my head in my hands, the weight of it all crushing me. The lawsuit was a mess we'd faced together. Lawyers, depositions, Daniel's vindictive shadow. But the real battle was here, in this room, where trust lay in pieces. I looked at Lila, her face streaked with tears, and felt the ache of love and loss intertwined. We'll figure it out, I said, my voice barely a whisper, not knowing if I meant the lawsuit or us. She nodded, reaching for me again, and this time, I didn't pull away.